What's happening, guys? Gemma here. I'm back again for a bit of a bonus video, so that's something outside of normal content. It is going to be the Tomb Raider developer panel from the Play Expo last weekend. It was awesome. It included developers from the first 3 Tomb Raiders as well as Angel of Darkness, but you guys can see that all here. Unfortunately, my battery did die at the end, but you get a good 30 to 35 minutes of what these guys are talking about, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And I was lucky enough to get an original copy, the double case of Tomb Raider signed by these awesome people. So without further ado, guys, here it is. Enjoy, and please like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.
I'll stand, that's fine. I'm not going to sit on the chair in place of you. I don't know, shall we see who most needs a chair? Too old, it will be in his chair. I will stand here, that's alright, I can do that. Unless we want, shall I sit on an awkward chair? But would it look better, Sonny, if I'm not? No? Right, ladies and gentlemen, I told you we had something truly remarkable in Play Expo. We will work our way along the line, I think, and perhaps you can introduce yourselves.
Hello?
Swanee, mic's all loud enough. We'll...
Hello. Hello, my name's Stuart Atkinson. I was an animator and artist on Tomb Raider 1 and in charge of Lara Croft animations and modelling on Tomb Raider 2.
Hello, my name is Andy Sandham. I was the script writer on Tomb Raider 4 and 5, and I was a level designer and environment artist on 3, 4 and 5.
Hello, Claire? Yep. I'm Murty Schofield. I was the writer on Angel of Darkness, and I am related to Curtis Trent by blood.
Hi there, I'm Gavin Romery and I was a programmer on Tomb Raider 1 and 2.
Hello everybody, I'm Heather Gibson and I was one of the level designers on Tomb Raider 1 and 2.
Hi, I'm Neil Boyd and I'm the other level designer that worked on Tomb Raider 1 and Tomb Raider 2. For coming.
Hello, my name is James Kenny and I was the concept artist for Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness.
Hello everybody, I'm Nathan McCree. I'm the composer for the original music on Tomb Raider 1, 2 and 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Tomb Raider 20th anniversary panel. I've not spent very much time with any of you. I only had a little chat with them backstage and in our green room earlier on, and wanted to stay out of the way for most of it. To be honest with you, there was a chance when I could have come over and talked to you, but I could see you were all reuniting. Is a little bit of an exaggeration perhaps, when it's not like there was a massive do going on and you're all spending ages there. But I know from the chats that I've had with you, you haven't seen each other. Most of you like meeting up again now for the first time in years and years and years, and surely you can tell from our audience response here, you made something that matters and people love it. And looking at you, I'm just going to ask you, Heather, about just that moment on your face then, just a little bit of realisation sinking in. You always knew this was good, but there's a lot of love here, and it's actually quite emotional, isn't it?
it's very, very emotional. We worked in a very isolated environment, and we'd got no concept of how we could touch people when we create a game. And to be honest, hang on. To be honest, it really kind of left my life for a long time, and this has been a pleasure to come to, just to see some fans that still remember the game, that are still playing the game, and basically just getting together with some people that I thought the world of and worked with for many years. So yeah, it is a great experience.
And watching those Croft confessions, and thanks to everybody who contributed to them before the event, watching those Croft confessions, there's a lot of really meaningful phrases there, a lot of real passion, and I know from some looks on some faces here and some yelps that we've had so far, which I'm sure there'll be many more, and good, keep them coming. It's something we really give a damn about, isn't it, Play Expo? Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. I mean, we might as well be talking about the games industry in general for the last 20 years. So many things I could ask you about. Level design, character development, controls, working on different platforms, working on different generations of systems. Like, we could do that in a gaming context, and all of it is applicable to what you started 20 years ago, which is absolutely incredible. But I won't keep on getting you big rounds of applause, otherwise our loving will get very little out of it. So we'll find out a few things. We're going to try and make this widely applicable, by which I mean there'll be some people in the audience who've played a bit of some Tomb Raider games and really liked them, maybe struggled to finish them, like me, and there'll be other people in the audience who want to know exactly what was in the box that you had to find in that light in a nightclub and so on, and certain specifics of levels and stuff like that. I know that we have all of those people in our audience. We'll do a little bit of everything, I think. There will be plenty of time for questions, everybody. We will have lots of time for questions at the end. I strongly urge you, as we always do on our stages here at Play Expo, if you've got any questions, really, really do ask them, because this is such a wonderful and unique opportunity to talk to people who are the reason we all come to places like Event City for a weekend of retro gaming. But let's go back then, 20 and a bit years, right back early on. So we'll go back to the early days of IDOS, we'll go back to the early days of Core. Who was around when the idea of tomb and raiding ever got floated? Who was about back then? Let's have a look. Heather, you were around? So I mean, this is the studio that made Rick Dangerous back in 1988, so that's God's, you know, exploration and caves and things like that in it as well. You can see some of our heritage there. Tomb Raider, a massive step from all of that as well. Who was around when it ever became an idea?
I wasn't actually around at the time, but the way that I've heard the story, which somebody else can probably expand on, is that Toby pitched it to Jez during a round-the-table meeting, and he kind of said, let's do an Indiana Jones type character, and Jez said, don't be an effing idiot, you'll get sued. And so Toby...
And that's it, that was the end. Thanks very much for coming, everybody. Really, so the first idea of it was like, we can't.
This is what I heard, but I don't know whether that's true or not, because I'm thinking Gavin was obviously there. So I was just saying that Gavin can't understand a word I'm saying. Could you hear me, Gavin?
It's quite hard to hear up here on stage.
I was saying that when Toby first pitched the idea of the table, when did Toby pitch the idea of Tomb Raider?
Okay, so I wasn't there for the actual pitching. I think only Heather may have been there.
I guess before there was ever a pitch, somebody must have gone, we could do a thing. And
I'll tell you the story as I understand it. Basically, Toby came up with the idea. He'd been doing a lot of stuff in his spare time. He came up with the idea of this, you know, tomb raiding adventurer. He'd done some, and he was trying to sell the idea to, you know, Jeremy Smith, the boss, and so he'd done all these kind of cutscenes and animations and whatnot, and initially he was getting no traction with it, but then there's some Japanese investors came around the company, and they saw it on screen, they went, oh, what's that? Yeah, we're this. And so suddenly he got the green light, and suddenly it was off.
Now that's a real fluke then, just that there's some investors saw part of an animation.
Yes, it was, I mean, basically, Core, the difficult thing I think everybody has nowadays when you hear about the massive teams is to understand quite what a weird place Core was back then. We were very small teams. When I turned up, In fact, I'll tell you about my first day. When I first turned up at the company, I was told, hey, you can work on this game. We've got this great game. It's going to be called Tomb Raider. It's going to be this 3D game. Go and talk to this guy, Toby. He'll tell you all about it. So I went and found Toby, and there was nowhere. We were in this old Victorian house, ramshackle place, and there was nowhere to go. There was no meeting room. So we sat on the stairs while he told me about the game, and he waved his arms around, going, oh, it's going to be like this. It's going to have this cinematic stuff and these cameras and slow mo during the... And I was thinking, what? This is 1995, you know, this is just kind of crazy talk. And I was just thinking, okay, this sounds ambitious. These must be real ninjas I'm going to be working with. I wander in a room, find Heather and that sitting there, and she goes, oh yeah, I worked on this Battletoads game and things, it's 2D, never done 3D. I'm thinking, okay, and there's literally 4 people to start with, and you know, I went over that, oh, and the best bit of the day ended with me going, right, so where's my computer? And they went, oh, yeah, there's one on order, it'll be turning up in the next couple of days. And I'm like, okay, yeah, so I'm a programmer, I'm supposed to be making this amazing game apparently, I don't even have a computer, and there's 3 other people. This isn't going to happen. But gradually, you know, Neil came on board and we gradually started building stuff. It took me a few months, but gradually I started thinking, hey, this might happen, this might, but even then none of us knew what it was going to become. So, you know, right to the end we didn't. We were kind of looking for anything in the news, any little article in a magazine going, oh look, they mentioned us, they mentioned us. So for us, when it finally came out and became a big deal, that was a real shock.
That was a real shock.
Oh, absolutely.
When it came out and it was a big deal, it was a real shock.
Yes.
You had no idea it was going to be as big as it is.
We got an inkling at E3 because they took one computer with Tomb Raider running on it and they sent back pictures that showed this massive crowd around it. But that was the first sign we got that it was starting to become something.
I was going to say that the first time I think me and Stuart saw, Toby was in the room next to us, and we went into the room to see him animating Lara. So Lara was basically running about on this screen. Me and Stuart were standing there. He showed us a couple of the acrobatic animations, and we were sort of totally, it was breathtaking. And so obviously we told Toby that it was a lot of shit, just so that we would irritate him. So that's kind of game development culture that as long as we made sure that Toby thought he was making a load of crap, we felt quite happy. Yeah.
I'm just going to check, can we all hear at the back? I can't tell, you need to be a bit more graphically clear. Kind of is what I'm getting, we're having a bit of trouble with sounds. The mics are...
Yeah, I think you've got to hold the microphone right up to your lips, guys.
Right, somebody who's worked in music and sounds knows how to point a microphone. They are very, very... they need close attention, our microphones, I'll delicately put it, so don't be shy. Right, and also there's a lot of bleed from around the rest of Play Expo. Well, we'll make it work. So you were saying, it's a small team back then, 6 people working a bit like bedroom coders, it's very much a house setup, it's not a massive development studio, not that many were sort of huge back then. Nathan, I read something that you once said, which was basically everybody chucked stuff in and made it work.
Yeah,
right back on the first game.
That was my impression of what was going on at Core, you know. So I was involved
He was the musician, he was in the basement, he knew nothing.
I didn't know what was going on upstairs. People used to come down and say, oh, we need some Star Wars music, or we need some dance music, or whatever. And so when it came to Tomb Raider, Toby came into the studio one day and just said, you know, look, I want some music for this new game. So we started talking about Lara Croft and her character and this kind of thing, and we decided together that, you know, English classical music would be a good way to describe Lara Croft. But as far as the sort of implementation went, and putting this stuff into the game, to me, it felt like there was no organisation whatsoever. It just seemed like we were all chucking stuff in and making it work as we went along. You know, the game engine, as I understand, was constantly being modified. The level editor was constantly being changed as we needed to get Lara to do things. And so it was, you know, the same with kind of sound and the music implementation. It was just like, let's get stuff in and just see if it works, you know, and if it doesn't, we'll change it. So, yeah, it wasn't anything like a game design document back then. You know, it was just an idea and we all just chucked stuff in.
But the idea had sort of taken on a form. If somebody had pitched this idea, you didn't realise how big it was going to be until you were shocked after its release. But the idea had a form, and originally Lara Croft was going to be a man. That's a thing. But she couldn't be because it was too much like Indiana Jones, you were mentioning earlier on. So became a female character. Was there a time when you were working on this thinking it was going to be a male protagonist, and then when somebody said, no, we've got to make her female, did you all go, oh, well, we're screwed then? Was that, yeah?
Okay, so when Toby came to Core, he'd already played a 2D version of Prince of Persia, so everything was male-led in the industry at the time. But I've got to say, in the very, very early stages, Toby always wanted to have a female character. I think he knew he was going to get a fight on his hands, but he persevered. And once he started doing some sketches and getting an animated model on there, it was quite easy to see that it was going to work. But what we didn't expect about the game, and it's what's come out over the last few years, is the empathy that people felt for a game character. And I don't think that had ever been achieved with a male model, a male character before that time.
Maybe
so it was an unexpected bonus, really, yeah. But no, Toby was pretty focused. He did have a bit of selling to do with Jez, but again, once it's on screen, she's up and running, he could see the potential then, yeah.
But the reason that you had a female protagonist was because a male one would be a bit too much like Indiana Jones, and also, like you said, a character that people could empathise with. But was it also because there was such a strong emphasis on this game being more of a puzzling game with sort of some platforming at its heritage, as opposed to an out-and-out, you know, action shooter?
It kind of evolved into that. So getting back to the very beginning of how Tomb Raider was created, it's very good, Gavin. We all have our memory of how things began. But my memory was going into a room, as Gav described, in an old Victorian building. There was Paul Douglas there and Toby Gard, and I was kind of the novelty girl that had just finished a project that nobody really knew if they wanted to have working for them. Toby was very mild-mannered and shy, but very artistic. And he'd started to create a scene in 3ds Max, which was a tomb, and it was just beautifully rendered. You'd got the dust clouds, you could feel the heat from the screen, and he did a camera pan down it. Now, I'd seen some of his 2D work, similar to Prince of Persia, but then I clicked what he was trying to do in this 3D world of adventure. And I had to say to Gav earlier, you undersold yourself when you had your little talk, because when Gavin arrived, that gave us the stepping stone we needed to put what Toby was doing with really high polygon models in Max into a usable editor that the level designers could make really quick levels with, output and test a character on in a matter of a few days. And without that engine, without the editor, they wouldn't have been a Tomb Raider, because I think we'd have just spent years modelling and modelling on Max, and nothing would have ever come to fruition. So
your time for testing levels and working out puzzles and so on was very quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was quite a major step. For me, one of the pivotal decisions that made Tomb Raider happen, and not just, because as I said, I was completely unconvinced it was going to happen to start with, but that's because Heather was sat there using the modelling packages of the day, which were wireframe. They looked like the rejects from Tron. It was just, and she was zooming into this level going, I think we're inside now, and it was just these lines all over the screen. You're just going, are we inside? She didn't know where she was going. I'm trying to work out where to put the door, and it was just a nightmare. And me and Toby have both played Ultra Underworld, which had been based on the grid. And I said, well, why don't we build something like that? Why don't we make it on a grid? And I remember that as being the most casual conversation. It's almost what Nathan's talking about, a casual conversation. Me and Paul and Toby and Heather and I going, that could work, you know. Oh my God, that made the whole game possible. Because then suddenly Toby went, oh yeah, and then I'll make all her animations. She jumps one block, she grabs two blocks, blah, blah, blah. and that's it. And then we had this editor where you just went click, 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 and these guys just ran with it. The other thing was I'd made it for tombs, so you made little rooms. First thing they did was slap all these rooms together, get rid of the walls between them, and build these giant chambers. It's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. But that's what made the game, so good plan.
Well, that worked out quite well, and led us on to many, many, many good things. So, the development process for this took how long? Anybody remember roughly how long you spent on this? I had it, you started back in 1993, sound about right? Nope. 5, when it actually went in, oh okay, yeah. And out comes Tomb Raider, and then 20 years later, we're still playing them. You didn't realise how good this was going to be. Let's go back on that point, because I think that's very, very interesting. You thought, when this thing was being published, what were you expecting? That you'd done okay, and you could just get on with something else now?
Everybody in the company, when we looked at Tomb Raider, everybody would pop in, say once a week and have a look at it, and then you would meet up with people in the kitchen, and everybody was quietly saying, it looks incredible. What they'd achieved was amazing. The character was amazing. The levels looked excellent. They were doing something nobody had done before, the third-person action adventure. You know, it was the start of all those types of games. So I think everybody knew that it was going to do well. We kind of knew it was going to be probably the best game core designer had ever done, but only by a few notches. You know, we weren't expecting. I think back then, I think a good selling game of ours was kind of about 40,000 units or something like that, and then obviously I think Tomb Raider shifted more, like about 150,000 on the day it was released or something.
On release day?
Or pre-orders, I think, were probably. Did you have lots of pre-orders? I can't remember. but obviously it went on to sell 5 or 6 million. So none of us could imagine that was going to happen.
Yeah.
We could imagine it was going to be an okay hit.
You must have known pre-orders were coming in. You had lots of advanced sales.
Well, back then, because everything was print onto CD, there was costs up front. There was paying for the packaging, the CDs, getting them in the shops. So even if you thought the game was going to do well, they still wouldn't pre-make hundreds and hundreds of thousands just in case it didn't sell. So I think what happened is after the initial batch went out, they disappeared practically overnight, and then I think there was a struggle to keep up with the demand for the rest of the year.
As I said, one of the important things I do remember Toby doing was that he'd always cherry pick. So he would like look at other games and he would try and not steal, but he would adapt elements out of them. So Mario 64, he used to play that every night. So Toby was a big gamer, and he would sit. Obviously, I think these guys obviously were as well. But the point is that he was looking at all the tech, the latest tech, for instance, in the Quake engine with the water effects. And he started adapting the game around that. So they were all adapting the game on the fly, from what I can see, which kind of taking all the latest technology and making sure that you were going to make the most forward-thinking product that you could. So I think that's another reason why it was such a success.
So was there a moment when everybody who'd worked on it got together and went, "Oh wow, this has surpassed all of our expectations, and we're going to do some more of this now"? Because the second one was already under development, wasn't it? You were already at least putting ideas together for a sequel, if not actually making. No,
the second one was probably put into motion about 3 months after the release of the first one.
Okay.
Because at that stage, I think people just had moved on and was trying out new ideas. Toby Gard and Paul Douglas, the other programmer, and Gavin, had gone off to another room and were starting to work on other game ideas. And I think obviously once the game started selling so many copies, it was like, okay, we need a sequel. And then another team was put together, including some of the original team, and I joined them as well. And then shortly after that, Gavin was convinced to come back onto Tomb Raider 2 because we really needed his talent.
There you go. You can take that with you. So yeah, I find that very interesting, that nobody who was working on this thing realised with everything they'd done and everything that was new in this game, there was going to be more of them, that it was necessarily going to sell so well that you need to prepare for that. Ideas, presumably, that couldn't fit in the first game maybe got carried forward into the second game. So a sequel is underway. That's back in 1997. And if anybody here is not happy about console exclusives, anybody who's looking forward to playing the very latest one, Rise of the Tomb Raider on PS4, but couldn't play it last year when it came out on Xbox One because of console exclusives, Tomb Raider 2 was an exclusive. Back then, Sony came along and said, we want this as a console exclusive back in 1997. That's how long console exclusives have been going for. So Sony very much believed that they had something, you had something very special on consoles, and they wanted that for themselves. So that's another big sort of shot of confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to ask Jeremy Smith, you know, the guy who was making all the deals, but it was a major thing to us when we found out about that. And they were also, they were packaging Tomb Raider. Was it Tomb Raider 1 or Tomb Raider 2? They bundled it in with the PlayStation as well, and obviously that was a guaranteed amount of sales coming our way. So, and obviously with the confidence that that brought us, we knew that we had to do more, you know, 2 or 3 sequels.
Did anybody join the team at this time? Anybody on our panel first involvement in Tomb Raider 2?
Me, yeah. Tomb Raider 1, I joined in the last 3 months to do some enemy characters, to do some animations, to help Toby out basically, because you know, Christmas was coming and the game had to be finished. And then he obviously left the team at that point, and so they needed somebody to take over the animation of the characters, so I took over Lara Croft from Toby. And also 2 French guys joined us at the time. They come over, they had a kind of a fresh style. We loved the work they were putting our team. And we also had another technical guy, Andrew Howe, who was specifically going to be programming the PlayStation version, which we guaranteed it was going to be exclusive.
So you're working on Tomb Raider 2, and Core commit that there's going to be an annual release. So there's going to be a Tomb Raider 3 the year after, there's going to be a Tomb Raider 4 the year after that. That, I understand, wasn't something everybody was pleased about.
Well, to be honest, we weren't, the team that worked on Tomb Raider 1 and 2, we weren't thinking in terms that we were going to do them year in, year out. So we had gone to Jez and said, no, we do Tomb Raider 3, we need a 2-year gap. And we started on that basis. And another team, which is Andy Sandham and some other guys who aren't here.
Angry pointing.
Sorry?
Angry pointing.
Those guys,
those bastards.
They were basically, they got told, okay, let's build, they were going to build Tomb Raider 2.5 originally. And then one day we found Eidos announced that Tomb Raider 2.5 was actually going to be Tomb Raider 3.
Next year.
Yeah.
The year
so they were
3.
suddenly, and that's the point. To be honest, we also realised we were burnt out. We'd had to work so hard on Tomb Raider 1 and 2. And that's when we all sort of stepped back, and the next kind of round of guys took over.
Yeah, because we were actually given, I was saying this the other day, we were given the engine, and we were developing some sort of undercooked cop type game, but basically because you guys left, then we were handed the keys to Tomb Raider, and that's when I started to smell the money.
Yeah.
But actually, no, but Heather you gave us one of your levels, thank God. So we had a head start. Yes, it's the main.
I was trying to have a witty comment there and just say to Andy that he had to move a block to get the keys for Tomb Raider.
Yeah, but
I'm not a comedian, so nobody needs to laugh.
No, Heather was here. The team was great. They supported us totally because we all understood that we had to move very quickly because there was a lot of pressure from up above, because you know Eidos was making millions of pounds out of the game, and we weren't doing too badly either. But the thing is that, you know, it was great, and we all supported each other. So thanks to them for that.
So before Tomb Raider came out, back before 1996, Eidos was in trouble financially. As a company, company wasn't going too well. In 1998, after Tomb Raider 3, the World Economic Forum said Eidos was the fastest growing company in the world.
Yeah!
That is quite a turnaround. And at this point, I guess it would be helpful or appropriate to say, I know a lot of people were expecting Ian Livingston to be on this panel as well. He's not well, I'm afraid. He's had an operation, and he was advised not to come, but we only found this out yesterday, and we understand that everything has gone well. He's just been advised he's not able to come to this sort of thing so soon afterwards. So our best wishes and thoughts are with him, and apologies to anybody who was hoping to meet Ian and see him here as we were as well. But unfortunately that's where Ian is. But we wish him very well. So 1998, Tomb Raider 3 came out, PC, PlayStation 1 and a Mac. 1999, that fourth game comes out then, The Last Revelation came out. The PlayStation exclusivity deal ended. That came out on Dreamcast as well. Any Dreamcast players at Last Revelation? Yeah, I thought there might be quite a few. And all the games were well received. All the games were getting lots of good reviews. But if you look back over the reviews of those games, you can find a small recurring theme of the games are good, but it's like the last one. It's not moving with the times. They look better visually. They're improving, but there was also saying it's good, but it's good more of the same, but still good. That's a very bad way of describing some of the reviews. Positive, with a sort of nudge that we feel like we've done this before.